Welcome to WebRTC Live. In WebRTC Live, we cover the latest technical topics and business use cases for WebRTC and live video. As always, this episode is brought to you by WebRTC.Ventures, leading integrators of WebRTC video into your custom application.
Welcome to the 100th episode of WebRTC Live. I'm your host, Aaron Tsahi, founder and CEO at WebRTC.Ventures. This is a very special 100th episode, and I'm grateful that we've had so many wonderful guests and viewers over the last 6 years that I've been hosting this monthly program. WebRTC Live was originally known as WebRTC Standards, hosted by Amir Zamora and Dan Burnett, who hosted the first 30 episodes talking about the evolution of the WebRTC standard. As WebRTC became more standardized, our team at WebRTC.Ventures took this program over and rebranded it as WebRTC Live. Over 100 episodes, we've spoken with all sorts of industry leaders about a wide range of technical and business topics related to building WebRTC applications. We've included product demos, technical conversations, and architectural tips. I've had a lot of fun along the way, such as when I drove Tim Canton's RC car remotely over the WebRTC data channel. I'm not sure which was more embarrassing, my driving abilities in that episode, or the time when Dan Jenkins and I played air guitar to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Janus and all of the work that Lorenzo Miniero's team at MeetEcho has put into that media server. But more seriously, we've also hosted live broadcasts from multiple conferences and done our best to promote the WebRTC community as much as possible. This is truly an amazing global community of experts who are passionate about real-time communications. We're honored to be part of that community and to have had so many of you as guests on this program. As always, WebRTC Live has been brought to you by WebRTC Ventures. At WebRTC Ventures, we're a custom design and development agency focused on building live video applications, and we're here to help you take your application live. So let's move on to today's episode, which is going to be a really good one. Thank you for joining us live today on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitch, and welcome also to any of you watching a replay of today's event. For those of you with us live, as always, you can ask questions throughout the stream by leaving a comment on whichever platform you're viewing this. So let's get on to the 100th episode of WebRTC Live. Welcome to WebRTC Live. I'm here live with Mike Vitale, co-founder of AVA Intellect and an expert in architecting scalable cloud-native SaaS platforms. And I'm proud to say he's a client of ours at WebRTC Ventures. Thanks for joining me today, Mike.
Aaron, I am honored to be on episode number 100. This is a big deal. Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. It is an honor to have you here with us, and you are more than a worthy guest for this 100th episode. So really appreciate it having you here. I've been excited for this conversation because we're going to talk about building interactive virtual teammates with AVA Intellect. And I think this is a great use case to show the power of combining WebRTC with AI into communication tools. So, Mike, why don't you start by telling us a bit about AVA Intellect?
Sure. I do have some slides I can share, but as promised, I said I would get dressed up today. How do I look?
Oh, I did. I forgot. I do remember you saying on LinkedIn that you were going to actually wear a blazer for this. I did not grab mine out of the closet. I hope you.
My wife said I look good today, so I'm hoping everyone agrees. But Aaron, I think I am ready. I've got my slides up.
All right, let's do it. Tell us a little about AVA Intellect. Yep, we are seeing your slides. Go ahead.
Let's get into it. A little bit about me, just my background. So, who the heck is this guy? I was the CTO at two startups, TalkPoint and InnovoEdge. So TalkPoint was a webcast webinar provider. I ran that company for about 20 years out of New York City, worked with one of the most wonderful staffs you could ever have hoped for, running tens of thousands of webcasts annually with millions of viewers. And then I was with InnovoEdge, which was a startup that was launched during the pandemic, picked up by Megaport, a network as a service company. Again, another great group, great experience. I've been very blessed in my career, and that continues working with your staff, Aaron. So I've been doing this for 20 plus years, delivering scalable SaaS solutions, global enterprises, Fortune 500, so Wall Street banks, big pharma, all four big accounting firms in the US. And I like to say 20 plus years because it sounds better than 25. So I'm not trying to date myself. Maybe Maybe I did this when I was 10 years old, but let's say I've been doing streaming media since the Clinton era. So kids don't look it up. And I've been doing mission critical SaaS as well, which is important to this conversation, right? So, like I mentioned, overseeing production of tens of thousands of webinars, and I'm sure the folks at StreamYard can appreciate, but understanding what it takes that a network can't go down, a webcast can't go down, and we're bringing a lot of that discipline to AVA Intellect. And the team that I've been working with there, Aaron, with Alberto and everyone, has actually been really great because everyone has the same attitude, and I think we'll be talking about that in a little bit. And as far as AI ML innovation goes, in my days at Megaport, I was working on a lot of AI-based network capacity, prediction services with a lot of smart folks, and like Dr. Jim Brinksma. And we brought some of these, solutions to market. And it got me thinking, a few years ago that AI is going to be big in the collaboration space. And that's kind of what sparked my interest in what is now AVA Intellect. So I went looking for a team, right? So I went looking for a team of experts, right? So we've got people with deep knowledge in video conferencing, right? Both proprietary with some of the platforms we're talking about today and also open source. And then taking that and building it into a multi-tenant SaaS platform, building AI voice agents and multi-agent automation, which we're going to be talking about today. And I'll read this one straight, right? Our lean, agile structure allows us to innovate rapidly, integrate, and deliver cutting-edge solutions, right? So take away from this presentation that all the vendors that you see, we are not looking, all the providers, we're not looking to compete, we're looking to integrate with. So I got together with a few folks that I worked with years ago, my co-founders, Frank John Lane and Manish Shah, and we decided to go to market. So I started, Aaron, it's been so long ago. I think I Googled you to find you, right? Oh, AI years, that's a long time. And I found Alberto, and we got together with the team, and just knowing everyone that we worked with, you're going to see Lucas and Alberto talking today, but being introduced to some really great video conferencing folks like Mr. WebRTC, Usman Bashir, and we've now been developing this platform for just a few months, and you're going to see it today. So as we were kind of developing kind of the mission statement here, I think Frank John Lane, he coined the phrase, right? He said, we're going to be an agent of agent platforms, huh? And I said, exactly, right? So being able to integrate the voice agents with multi-agent platforms and extending the reach of what you could normally do with just a regular voice chat bot, we've got really enhanced capabilities that really bring the virtual employee to life. And I should mention we're part of the NVIDIA Inception program, Microsoft for Startups. These are two great programs, and we've got access to NVIDIA tech right now that we wouldn't have normally had access to. And we're starting to test with that right now and looking to bring it to market soon. So I don't want to shy away from the topic, right? Some people might get a little bit nervous, but we're talking about building a virtual employee. And this is not to replace employees, but this is to take, I think everyone who's on the webinar today has some, routine operation that they do every single day that they wish they could automate away. And that's what this is about, right? It's being able to take, it could be a financial operation. It could be interacting with a ticketing system, right? We talk about Jira, GitHub, Salesforce, ServiceNow. It's building these platforms so that your employees can take care of the boring stuff. So we look at this as kind of four pillars. So one, I don't think I have to tell anyone on the webinar today, large language models are a key component to the platform. So being able to integrate with Anthropic, OpenAI, Gemini, that's all baked into the platform. But we designed this, it's going to be a very big industry to be able to bring your own model to market. So we designed the platform with that in mind, so that if you want to bring your own platform, bring your own model, whether it be through a Microsoft Azure service, an Amazon Bedrock, we designed that the platform with that in mind. And then customizing your AI voice and video assistant. So, actually, working with some of the best providers out there like OpenAI and DeepGram, 11 Labs, Cartesia, and then be able to marry that with some of the, live agent platforms like a LiveKit and a PipeCat. We designed the platform with all of that in mind so we can plug and play the architecture. And just as new providers come to market with this latest and greatest, we can rapidly integrate them. And that also includes some of the video providers as well. So there's a lot of streaming, video avatar companies out there that we're going to quickly integrate with as soon as that technology is available. And then automating processes using multi-agent platforms. I would say if you're on this webinar and you haven't heard about multi-agent platforms, go out and check it out. You're going to see that there's basically an explosion right now in the industry of multi-agent platforms that are incredibly powerful, where you can literally chat with a system and it will just ask you what you would like to automate, and you can then go through that journey of automating that process. And we're connecting our voice agents with those platforms. So you can look at the platforms like Microsoft Copilot, Zapier, even OpenAI with their framework. One of the ones we're going to demo today is an integration we did with Crew AI. They're a very great platform, very slick, and a very similar experience to what I just said. You just chat with the platform, and you can automate virtually anything. And then real-time collaboration, right? So talking about different platforms out there that we're going to integrate with, all the obvious players, right? So you've got your Zooms, WebExes, Google Meet, and then Microsoft Teams is what you're going to see today. But we can really integrate with anything, right? I'm talking to you, StreamYard, and working with the WebRTC team, we've got those capabilities to really customize the experience. And we don't want to just create virtual employees who are your imaginary friend, that you talk to one-on-one, or maybe you embed them in a website somewhere. We want to bring them with us, right? We want to have them join us on calls and collaborate with actual, other colleagues, like real teammates. So we look at this as the new org chart. Aaron, I'm going to disclose these are not real people. All right. They're not in this org. I downloaded them from Creative Cloud, I think. Right. But we're looking at this as within an organization, right? Take your AVA voice agent and then give them the capabilities to integrate with these other platforms. So in the example here, we've got our voice agent. They're powered by an LLM. They're powered by RAG. They've got their capabilities that you might expect, but they can now also interact with and control multi-agent teams. So in the example here, I've got a project management agent team who have different specialists that are executing on a specific process. I've got a Jira specialist, a ServiceNow specialist. They're sending Slack messages and all the different, emails that might need to be sent out. And I've got a product management agent team here as well, but it really is unlimited, right? So if we're talking about interacting with a Salesforce, a ServiceNow, it is all completely capable using the technology that we have access to. And as we talk about the employee roadmap, I'll just touch on this quickly. You're going to hear me talk a lot about security. There's a lot of companies doing a lot right now in the AI space, and everyone's kind of rushing to get their product out there. But I think security is going to take on much more importance. So on our roadmap is adding in a lot of security and compliance controls, making sure that when an agent is deployed internally or externally, you've got legal compliance that are actually signing off on it. You've got a QA team that's looking into, making sure that guardrails are in place. All of that's going to be baked into the platform. And then things like being able to do, voice-enabled creation of assistants. For those that may not have seen, you're starting to see a lot of low-code, even no-code options. I'm not going to say vibe code yet. That's a little bit out there. But, people are starting to create platforms and systems that actually don't have to know how to code. Now, we can all argue as to how good that's going to get and how reliable that tech will be, but we are definitely entering an era where people who are not necessarily skilled, developers are going to be able to deploy some level of automation. Ubiquitous agent integration, we definitely see a longer term roadmap where we want to integrate this platform, to an AR, VR setup. You're going to meet Monica today in our demo, and I definitely see a day where Monica is kind of with you, in your Meta glasses talking to you, or she's in your heads up display in, Vision Pro, etc. And then streaming agentic avatars. So, looking at companies out there, like a DID and a HeyGen, being able to take those videos and be able to integrate those into the platform, we absolutely have an eye on. We're testing with some of those right now. And then you'll see it again, security framework, right? We're going to need to kind of police AI with AI, and we've got a longer term roadmap around that. So, Aaron, that was my quick explanation of AVA. So
Excellent.
I'm going to stop sharing here.
Yep. Yeah, thank you, Mike. That was really interesting, and a lot of fascinating things coming up on the roadmap, and certainly the focus on security will be, I'm sure, really important for your client base, looking at kind of an enterprise client base. There's a couple of things about this whole concept that I find really fascinating, and so part of why I was excited to have this opportunity for us to work with you and for us to speak on WebRTC Live. One is that kind of in the WebRTC space, we've been working in the space for 10 years now, and the WebRTC standard itself is, not that much older than that, but we've kind of moved from the idea originally of WebRTC first being built for, let's make another meeting tool. And initially there were people making, better meeting tools than we had at the time, better than the Skypes of the world that were common, a decade ago. And then what we've always emphasized is in our work is, well, just making a meeting tool is not all that interesting by itself. So let's bring video into a workflow and make something really powerful with it there. What you're doing here, and I think a lot of this, future type of work is really interesting because it will be something of the opposite. It's taking the workflow into an existing video tool like Teams. And so bringing in an LLM workflow into that and the power that you can unlock with that. And there's still, it's still an interesting combination of, WebRTC and LLMs and AI technology, which we'll talk more about in a minute. But I think it's fascinating to see that, different architectural perspective and all the possibilities that's going to open up for your clients. So.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said, right? And obviously WebRTC is great because it is kind of that nexus point, right? To be able to connect with all these different platforms, right? We still do have kind of the big providers out there that everyone lives within every single day, but we've been able to take actually WebRTC with the team and be able to handle, the handoff between, your traditional, proprietary conferencing platform and WebRTC.
Yep.
And I think it's very powerful to think that I can take my virtual assistant with me anywhere I go. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't just have to live in Teams. I don't just have to live in Google. They can actually come with me.
Yeah, absolutely. So to give our viewers a better understanding of what that looks like, why don't we switch over to the demo that you have?
Great. Mike Vitale taking you through a demonstration of the AVA Intellect platform. I'm currently at our branded SaaS login, but I should point out that everything that you see today is readily available as a REST API. So enterprises and service providers can use any of the features that you see today using a REST API. So let's log in. Okay, so now we've logged in and you can see we have all of our agents that we've created earlier. So they represent a number of virtual employees, including marketing support, IT support, and sales support. So we're going to click on Monica today as an example, but before we do that, we're going to click over to integrations and just highlight that we have a number of different integrations with service providers like Levent-Levi, Deepgram, Cartesia, Cerberus, Anthropic, OpenAI. And specific to our tooling, we have some integrations with Jira, GitHub that I'll be talking about in just a moment. So this is a bring your own key environment. You have a relationship with one of these providers and you're able to actually use that service within the AVA portal. Click back into agents and let's visit Monica. Okay, so here we have Monica, who is our marketing and sales support agent for Visralink, a leading innovator in video conferencing solutions. So Monica is going to support the sales team, answer product-related questions, technical insights, and going to help with client demonstrations. So through the interface here, we can do things like change the headshot for Monica and soon to be video in the very near future. We can give Monica a unique name. We can give Monica a description. And then we can do things like select a voice. So as I mentioned, with integrations with Deepgram, Levent-Levi, Cartesia, we have many different voices built into the platform now that you can choose from, and you can play the selected voice right here to test it out before you actually put the agent into production. From a profession perspective, we have different professions that add to the persona of the agent, and then we can also give them a personality. So these are completely customizable for service providers, but we just have a few unlocked here. And then we have the ability to select the LLM model as well. So in this particular instance, we have OpenAI models and we have Anthropic models, but we did design the platform so that you can bring your own LLM into the mix. And then, of course, we've got things like custom behavior, so we can tell Monica exactly how she should act when interacting with users. So we have agent visibility settings here. So Monica can be set to be publicly accessible or kept as a private agent. So we also have the ability to augment Monica's knowledge beyond just the LLM with retrieval augmented generation, or RAG. And we do that by creating a knowledge base where you can upload documents, and that is built into the platform. And we also have the ability to assign tools to Monica, which is really the ability for us to assign functions and access to multi-agent platforms that can automate processes for our users. We'll be talking more about tools in just a moment, but you can see we've got access to a few different sales and marketing tools that will help Monica in her job. Now we can actually chat quickly with Monica and find out a little bit about the tools that she has access to.
Hello, my name is Monica, and I'm happy to assist you.
Hey, Monica, this is Mike.
Hi, Mike. How can I assist you today?
I'm actually wondering what tools you have access to and how you can help me.
I have access to tools for gathering information, analyzing markets, and providing insights about VisualLink's video conferencing solutions. I can help you with product details, market reports, or any specific questions you may have. What do you need assistance with?
Well, Monica, the exact thing that I need assistance with, I don't think you have access to yet, so I'm going to help you out. I'll be right back. Okay, so now what I want is for Monica to help me to analyze a company, find decision makers, and help me sell my product to that company. So to do that, going to the tools section. So we have a few tools unlocked here. Some of these are multi-agent teams that are hosted on the AVA Intellect platform, and others are third-party integrations. So as an example here, this strategic prospecting crew is actually an integration that we have with Crew AI. So if I click on the edit icon here, you can actually see that we're going to be reaching out to this third-party multi-agent platform, Crew AI, and we've got our inputs here, and we're giving some descriptions to the tool so that the agent knows how to interact with it. So I'm going to enable this tool. We're going to go back to agents, click on Monica again, and now from the drop down, I will see the new multi-agent process available to me, and I'll click on it, and now Monica will have access to this.
Hello, my name is Monica, and I'm happy to assist you.
Hey, Monica, it's Mike. Can you tell me what tools you have access to?
Hi, Mike. I have access to tools for gathering information about our products, analyzing target markets, and conducting in-depth research on companies. I can also check the status of specific tasks related to these functions. What do you need help with?
I need help looking for strategic prospects. Can you help?
Absolutely. I can analyze a target company and create a strategic engagement plan for you. Just let me know the product we're selling and the target company you'd like to focus on.
So we're going to be selling AI voice agents as a SaaS platform, and I want to sell it to Microsoft.
I've initiated the analysis for selling AI voice agents to Microsoft. You can check back anytime for updates on its progress.
Okay, so now this task is running, and this is where we actually start monitoring what the agentic crews are doing. So while this is running, I'm actually going to jump into the task section, and you can see that the strategic prospect crew has already completed. So as I go into the crew, we can see the output here. So we can see that the team came up with a bunch of executives at Microsoft that we should be targeting. And then it'll give us, a tailored approach and a strategy for actually selling our product into Microsoft. Now let's see if Monica has context of that.
The task has been completed successfully. Here are the results. Company overview. Microsoft is focused on advancing its AI capabilities and is interested in partnerships that can enhance user experience and workflow efficiency.
Thanks, Monica. That's good.
You're welcome. If you need further assistance or have more questions, just let me know.
So we can see here that Monica now has access to the output from the third-party multi-agent team. So the output that was produced by the third party, Crew AI, who we're big fans of, is now actually being tracked on their side and within our database. And Monica now has access to this and can actually follow up on it into the future. Okay, so very simple example, but I think you can see that the possibilities are really unlimited with respect to integrating LLMs, voice agents, and multi-agent platforms. So last but not least, and I'm going over time here, I don't want to get in trouble, is we want to connect Monica into our video conferencing platform. So in this case, I'm going to invite Monica to join me in a Microsoft Teams call. We will go in on the browser. And now I'll add the AVA Teams app. Yes, I still have a Hotmail account. Now that I've added the app, I have brought all of my agents with me, including Monica, who I will now invite to this call. Hey, Monica, it's Mike.
Hi, Mike. What can I help you with today?
I just wanted you to say hi to all my friends.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here with you all. How can I assist you today?
Thanks, Monica. And we've added some controls into the platform as well, so we can actually control when Monica is talking or when we need to mute her, and all of this is built directly into the Teams app. Oh, Aaron, you muted?
I am muted. Sorry about that. That was fantastic. Really cool demo there. Really appreciate it. We have a couple of comments here from live viewers I want to share.
Sure.
First of all, Daniel just saying, wow. But then following up and asking, does Monica help with cold calling?
Monica can be set up to help with cold calling. So that is not initially in the first version of the platform, but it's absolutely something that we're talking about right now.
Yeah. So yeah, in your example, you were building an outreach strategy, and so then you could tie that into other uses of the LLM and bot.
That's right.
Like cold calling. And another question here from Nick, who wants to know if you're using expert system AIs in this.
So Nick Boletta is a mentor of mine. And we have talked about AI for many, many years. So Nick Boletta, we are using state-of-the-art large language models under the hood. So Anthropic, OpenAI, right, and Google.
Okay, very good. Thank you for your question, Nick. And so, and part of what you mentioned, and maybe we'll talk about this more in the architecture segment, is that you do have the ability to integrate with a variety of LLMs as part of this, right?
That's right.
So you could integrate with LLMs that are very specific to certain tasks or based on an expert system AI or whatever the use case might be. So one thing I wanted to ask you to talk a little bit more about, I think is really interesting in the video, is how some things that you ask the bot to do, the agent to do for you, can take extra time, right? A lot of things it's going to be able to answer right away, and the latency in general is super low in this. I mean, you're having a good natural conversation,
and it keeps getting better, right? I feel
yeah,
like
it continues to improve, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. So I know that's been complicated to implement and is super impressive, but then there are other tasks of just, building a report or doing some additional data analysis or research that are just going to take more time and are kind of done offline. So talk a little bit about how that's handled in the workflow, how it's handled in, say, like a Teams call. You ask the agent to do something, and that's going to go take a few minutes. You continue with your meeting with the other people in the call. How does that work?
So by default, when we're actually asking the agent to execute on underlying function, right, there's kind of two different sets. One is where we're going to wait for the response. So we know that it's not going to be a long running report or something of that nature, and you're going to get an instant response, right? So I didn't quite show up, but Monica has access to real time, web information. So it's very quick for her to respond with a search. She'll come right back to you. When we've authored something that's going through a third-party multi-agent platform that we know we're going to be running a Salesforce report, it's going to have to go through some other analysis. That's when it's going to be run kind of offline. Currently, we're asking people to kind of check back in with Monica on whether the task is finished or not, right? But ultimately, we are getting close to where she will be able to intelligently interrupt us to tell us that the task is complete. And then, of course, all this is available offline as well. So if you want it to be sent as a Slack notification or an email, that would be the end result.
Yeah, that'll be that's super cool, and it'll be interesting to see how over time, as that develops, where she's able to intelligently interrupt, because that in bots in general and in voice AI, the whole concept of how do you handle turn in conversation.
Exactly. And we're seeing that evolution, right? It was VAD at first, now it's turn, so we are seeing that kind of exponentially get better.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the things you mentioned briefly in that is integrating with tools like Jira. So Jira, which for those who may not be familiar, helps teams to manage agile boards and user stories and agile teams, stuff like that. That was a really interesting observation and integration to me as well that I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about. And I'll give you a little context why I'm asking you that. In another program that I host called the Scaling Tech Podcast, a couple of months ago, I had a conversation with Sanjeev Augustine, the founder of LifeSpeed, which is an agile consulting company in the US, and an old friend of mine. And we were talking about what is the role that AI will play in agile teams in the future. How will it change it? Could AI become your scrum master essentially in a team? And we had a really interesting conversation around that and kind of settled on, well, it's not going to replace that role specifically, but it can do a whole lot to really augment and help that. And in that conversation, which I did not realize at that time, you were already working on this. We talked about, wouldn't it be cool if you could just tell a bot in the conversation, hey, go update that user story for me in Jira, and do things like that in real time as the conversation's going on. And that's the sort of thing that you could do with this, right?
Right now. So you met Monica. There's also Maya, who, in the interest of eating our own dog food, Maya does have access to our Jira and GitHub repos, read only for now, right?
Right.
But she does yell at me that I'm not grooming the backlog enough and that we've got too many tickets piling up. So I will do another demo on that one. I want to protect the innocent on a live webinar, of course, but we'll blank out the names. But absolutely, that is, we're pretty much there. Exactly what you just described. I think a scrum master can rely on, it's kind of like talking to your data to a certain, degree, where it's like, okay, we've pulled down these reports, we're analyzing people's activity, and then we're looking, it's like a living burn down chart, right? Where someone's telling you exactly how someone's performing. Yep.
Absolutely. I mean, talking to your data is a great way to phrase it, because it really gets to that point of that, voice is ultimately the interface of the future.
That's right.
It's once we can interact with bots in a natural way and at the speed of human conversation, that is so powerful. And this is a really interesting example of that. So I want to a number of other questions, but maybe we should move on to talking a little bit about the technical side of the application. Sure. And then you and I will come back and answer some additional questions here as well. So
excellent.
All right.
Hi, everyone. I'm the CTO at WebRTC.Ventures, and today we are excited to share a quick overview about AVA Intellect. It's a project we have been working lately these last 5 months. And here we have also Lucas, the technical lead of the project at WebRTC.Ventures. And he's going to talk a little bit about the features that we have built in this SaaS platform.
All right, thanks, Alberto. Yes, nice to be here. So in this project, we have been working in this amazing product. Essentially, we built a agent that can join web conferencing applications such as Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, Zoom, and others. And essentially, what we have is a SaaS backend or dashboard where you can set up your agents and then essentially add them to any of the meetings you want them to participate. So what these agents can do, it ranges from just basically answering any type of questions that an LLM can answer, but it also gets deeper than that. We added a knowledge base section where every client can add all the particular data that they work with. Those can be files, databases, or anything they have and they want the agent to know about. And these knowledge bases work as repositories that can be added to specific agents. So some agents can have knowledge about certain things, other agents can have knowledge about other things. And like that, you build the agent you need for a specific meeting or conference you're having. Another thing we have done is empower these agents with tools. So Some tools that are more like basic, like web searching and things the agent can do, like checking the stock market or a particular weather in some area or place. But there are other more also complex agentic tools that you can launch straight from the voice and the conversation through the agent. We have integrated a tool called Crew AI, which basically allows our clients to create their own agentic workflows for doing tasks like long running generally and complex tasks that will be triggered by this Crew AI. They call it Crew, and it's integrated to the agent as well. So when you're talking with the agent, you can tell it, for example, create a report on market, whatever, some sort of market strategy or marketing strategy or something. So the agent will trigger this agentic workflow, and the agentic workflow can gather data, search the web for specific information, then with that information do other things, and like that. It's a workflow where outputs and inputs get triggered one after the other, running different LLMs and giving you a report back or some sort of action that the agent can do back. This can also be the like performing actions, which is the most exciting things that we are able now to do with the agents, which is to, for example, run a or organize a new meeting and invite people over to that meeting. So that's one example of making an action in, for example, Google Calendar for you, right? Like, and like that, there's any other actions that we're working on integrating different platforms for the agent to be able to execute these actions. This agent also has the capability of remembering a conversation, like the meetings. So it's very useful when you use it in meetings, because now you can say, for example, what were the actionable items of our last week meeting? And the agent will tell you who needed to do what and can review on that. And you can ask all sorts of information on previous conversations that or meetings that already happened. So if you were discussing a certain project, for example, some meetings back or anything like that happened, then the agent is able to pull that information and discuss about it with you, tell you where you're at and what were the next steps and how to continue, or either continue the brainstorming about that. So yeah, I think that's kind of the overview of the product. Going a little bit deeper into the product, we have used and integrated some open source platforms that help doing WebRTC and real time with AI. So creating, for example, an AI pipeline to be able to have conversations and conversational AI with the LLMs. So essentially, we are able to understand when a sentence or query is finished, to get that audio, transform that audio into text, send it to the LLM, and then when the LLM has a response back, be able to transform it into speech audio again and stream it into the web conferencing platform. So this way, it looks really like you're speaking with someone. We're using very advanced models for every one of these stages. And so that's a little bit about the AI portion of it. There are new things coming about how to join meetings and stuff. But yeah, I'm going to leave Alberto then to continue with the web conferencing aspect of this platform.
Yeah, thank you, Lucas. I think, as you said, the AI-powered real-time agent is the most exciting feature of this, because it's like really an experience of having a conversation with a person with really low latency. It was a tough challenge going over different bugs and issues, trying to squeeze every millisecond we could in the process. And yeah, we were able to have this sentence that integrates today with Teams apps. So we have, as you can see in the screen, there is a tab where you can control your agent, and you can bring your agent to your Teams meetings. And we are working also on supporting Zoom, Google Meet, and others. And this is also very powerful because all the tools and enhancements Lucas mentioned are available in your traditional video conferencing meetings. So this works. This is kind of the high-level pipeline of how it works. So it's there is some kind of meeting. In this case, I'm showing Teams media servers. You are having a video call there, and then there is some kind of media relay service that we have been building that is capturing audio and sending RTP. Via WebRTC audio through media servers to then an agent that is capable of doing different operations like speech to text and also the additional functions, tools, and capabilities in real time. So other integrations, as I said, like Zoom, Google Meets are actually in alpha. I would say we can demonstrate them, but they are not publicly available yet. And of course, this was all built with scalability in mind. So the whole setup is built on Kubernetes, all the services we have, the backend, the front end, the workers, the different services are all hosted in AWS. There are some exceptions for the integration with Teams, but it's all using a scalable infrastructure of Kubernetes. So this is pretty much the high level, the talk from Mike and with Mike and Aaron. I probably will say much more, and they will talk about the future also probably of AVA. But this is where we are today, and it has been exciting to work on this project, and hopefully we get to have this in production with thousands of users real soon.
All right. Thank you, Lucas and Alberto, for that. Mike, they touched on it a couple of times in that the importance and challenges around low latency in the conversation. I just wanted to ask you to kind of expand on that a little bit or talk about, your perspective on that.
Well, I think at the end there, the scalable architecture is incredibly important, right? We talked about disaster recovery and, fault tolerance. So being able to do this, as a Kubernetes deployment, also with an eye on porting it to other clouds as well, right? So Azure, GCP, we wanted to make it very easy for us to kind of shrink wrap this and put it into people's own clouds if need be. And that's where kind of bring your own LLM comes into play as well. But low latency is key here, right? We talked about, the ability to talk to an agent, if there's too much of a delay, if there's too much of, that kind of back and forth, it doesn't feel natural, then this isn't going to work, right? So we're definitely on the bleeding edge here, right? So the team, Lucas, Alberto are great. They're always talking to me about this and how we can, I think Alberto said it, try to squeeze out every millisecond, right, of the interaction. Right. And, it blows my mind, having done this for years, to think about how many things are happening under the hood at once for you to have that interaction. And, we're really seeing something interesting here, with AI, where we're seeing this kind of takeoff, with the capabilities and the architecture that's available now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really highlights the importance of expertise in so many different aspects. You've got to be strong with DevOps and cloud systems and scaling them, and tools like Kubernetes. You've got to be strong in the unique aspects of DevOps and scaling when you're talking about real-time systems and video and audio communications, which is different than just scaling a standard website. As well as you've got to become an expert in prompt engineering and working with LLMs. So there's a tremendous amount of interesting technical work that goes behind this, and I think so much opportunity for technical teams to kind of grow in their expertise. So for every one thing that AI is maybe going to automate and take off of a developer's plate, we're seeing some really interesting examples in this conversation of other things, that other new skill sets and expertise that developers need to learn about.
That's an amazing point. I agree with that. Even just working together with the team, the AVA team, working with the WebRTC team, I think we both learned a lot from each other just going through this process. And, ultimately creating this platform where we have spent long days talking about how to scale things, right, with voice agents and being very, smart about the way we deploy things under the hood. And it scales really well. So we're pretty proud of it.
Excellent. So let's go to a couple of comments from live viewers here. Charles says, as an enterprise accounts manager, it seems like this could be used to bring on technical experts on a prospecting or client call in real time, as opposed to letting the client off the hook and scheduling a follow-up, kind of keep the sales momentum going. What, is that correct? You know, how do you see it being used in that sort of use case?
That's an interesting use case, and I think Mr. Yance here, who I may or may not know from a past life, Aaron, I promised you we were going to have a colorful crowd on this webinar.
I appreciate it.
So Charles and I are going to have a conversation about this, but I absolutely think we could keep the conversation going. So if you do have kind of, I'll say, a junior account rep being on a call who may need access to very quick information, or maybe even being able to like bring up demo information, or, you know, and there's so many use cases out there for being able to pull up, let's say, live videos. There's a lot of video search companies out there. So if you need to bring up a demo very quickly based on the conversation you're having with a prospect in real time, that is completely on the roadmap, right? Being able to do that. So you can imagine, hey, after the call, I'll send you collateral. No more. You take care of it right there in the call, bring up the video. This is a little bit future forward, but I can absolutely see that in the near future.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, in a sales conversation, everything from, you know, don't let the lead off the call until you schedule the next one. So getting the agent to help you with that scheduling, getting them to pull up sales meetings, all that sort of sales collateral, all those sorts of opportunities. So another question here from an anonymous LinkedIn user. Where do you see this space in 5 years?
Oh, ask me where do I see it in 5 months at this point, right? And I think we both see this, Aaron. It's like it's moving exponentially quicker, right? You know, AI years, you know, we used to call it internet years, right? Now it's AI years. So in 5 years, I think we definitely finally get to the point where potentially some AR, VR applications are actually being used at scale, right? We'll have to see what the form factor of glasses and things like that get to. But I think when I look at what's going, even this week, seeing some of the latest in robotics, you know, of what's going on, and, you know, looking at kind of these LLM integrations is like the new OS, right? And how do I actually bring my own model and embed it in these different platforms? I think there's going to be a tremendous focus on that, right? So I'm hesitant to say 5 years right now. So let's keep that within a year or two, right?
Right, absolutely. We have another comment here from Muhammad Usman Bashir, also kind of asking for your predictions there. What's your vision of AI teammates? Any bold predictions around that? And also ask any bold predictions, I guess, for me on the next 100 episodes of WebRTC Live. I'll give mine first. My not so bold prediction is we're going to be talking about AI agents built into communication tools a lot in the next 100 episodes. There's so much interesting possibility in this space. But yeah, any additional bold predictions you want to make, Mike?
I think the digital twin idea, right, where I can invite my own avatar into a meeting, that is something I've been interested in for a while, but I really have to see that and look into it. I think we'll start to see people dabble in that. And I think that's going to be an interesting use case where you actually have your avatar show up to take meeting notes for you and get back to you. I think it's going to be more of an interesting one in the long run. But I would say that in the short term, that's probably an interesting, you know, you're starting to see this where people are bringing their own avatar. I swear this is me, by the way. This is not, I promise you. Okay. I would look even more handsome if I was using a streaming avatar. But I think we're starting to see that happen now on calls where people are kind of, you know, laying in bed and they've got, you know, an avatar who's actually representing them on the call. But going one step further and be able to like answer questions, I'm very interested in that space. We're looking at it, we're thinking about it, but I think it needs a little bit more work. And also, I think the ethical concerns of what is happening right now in the industry are big. I touched on security, but also making sure that we're defending against deep fakes and we're defending against, you know, people showing up on call. There's a whole host of things that can go wrong. So I think a lot of people are going to be thinking about these security controls, and AVA wants to be right in the mix there.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, no doubt your enterprise clients will require that, and there's a lot of possibility for things like digital twins. But yeah, maybe not too twin-like.
Right.
Exactly.
That's
some
that's a good way to put it.
disclosure involved.
Mhm,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we had another interesting possibility for that sort of thing too. We had a conversation about a year ago, if I remember correctly, on WebRTC Live about accessibility in
Mhm.
communications tools. And we talked about, at that time, what was kind of the state of the art around being able to bring in and use AI as well as digital avatars and speech to text and all that for different, vision and hearing impairments
Mhm.
into applications. So there's also a tremendous amount of potential here with tooling like this to not, to help people who might have a challenge joining some of these conversations and fully participating to be able to help with someone like Monica or Maya, our assistants in there. So this was touched on in the video. I'm sorry, Mike, did you want to?
No, I was just saying, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, when you think about some of the video generation pieces, right, being able to even do a digital avatar that's doing ASL, on any broadcast, absolutely is something that is doable. I almost feel like that could be done with existing tech, right? So I think we're going to see, a whole host of options there, with all the different compliance regulations out there. AI is a perfect tool to be able to solve for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially something like sign language interpretation that has so many different dialects. It's not always the same in every country, for
Right.
example. So, that's a great area for AI to help with too.
That's right.
So this was mentioned some in the architecture video, but I wanted to follow up on it a little more with you too about how you handle private data from enterprises in this. And so you mentioned, doing retrieval augmented generation and I think Lucas mentioned, also being able to sort of ask back about prior meetings that you had too, what were our action items from the past, that sort of thing. So how do you handle that sort of private data?
Some of that's our experience working with some of these enterprise platforms over the year and having permissions in place to make sure that, at least the people that are not privileged to get access to the data do not get that. And we've spent a lot of time. So I can tell you about 3-hour-long conversations with Lucas and Alberto and Manish Shah on our team, talking about exactly how we're going to allow access to that, right? Of course, there's always going to be, the user has to maintain security. The user has to be, obviously thinking about that. And that's why with the agents, we're thinking about the compliance loop that we talked about, whether they should be public or private, and then adding different layers of permissions in. So you can have agents that have no access to anything except real-time information where they're just assisting you on a call. But we do want to have the ability for agents to kind of remember the calls that you've been on, right? To be able to get off a call and kind of check in with them. How did that call go, right? Now Monica's telling me what she thinks, which is scary, but we're there, right? But yeah, those controls are definitely kind of what I talked about at the beginning about the security and compliance pieces, right? But that's also why we designed the platform so it can be shrink wrapped and kind of hosted in your own environment, right? People are going to want to use their own Azure instance with their own Azure OpenAI LLM, and that's how we designed the platform. Of course, for our coming to market here for MVP, we are using, as Alberto mentioned, AWS and some services like DeepGram, et cetera, right, in our own RAG.
Yeah. Yeah, and speaking of security, I know there are some organizations trying to block AI bot access into meeting tools through like CAPTCHAs or blocking anonymous users. Teams has some features around this as well, I believe. Like, what's your kind of approach in general in trying to integrate with a variety of meeting tools and use cases and situations of how you handle that sort of permission?
Yeah, a lot of what I think Alberto was touching on this, right? But actually going through some of the process. So let's take Teams, for instance, right? Integrating with the application hosted media bot framework, right? So that's kind of Microsoft's approved process for us to go through. And it took a lot of extra work, to obviously work that and to be able to access the Teams streams and set up all of the signaling back and forth between WebRTC and Teams, right? But ultimately going through that process was the right way to do it, right? So and then ultimately, like when Alberto talked about what we're bringing to market, getting our Zoom app approved, to getting other platforms that are going to be onboarding approved. There's going to be this process where people are going to probably be onboarding beta apps to be able to use this, right? And again, keep in mind, video conferencing is just one part of it, right? So ultimately you can use the agent one-on-one and embed the agent anywhere you want. But I think that last slide that Alberto went over was kind of the pain we went through, to get the Microsoft blessing.
Yeah, but as you were showing in the demo too, and as you just said, interacting with the agent outside of the meeting tools as well, taking the agent with you wherever you go, I believe was how you phrased it. So that brings up the possibility of integrating this into other workflows outside of meeting tools as well, and having that sort of continuous connection between them.
And we're having those conversations. I mean, we're targeting service providers, so being able to talk to service providers that want us to augment their own tools, keep their clients kind of in their ecosystem. I mean, that's a big target for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So for anyone watching this who wants to know if they can partner with you, Mike, I guess it sounds like you were open to those conversations for other tools and platforms that you want to integrate with. Excellent. So as we're nearing the end here, I want to ask kind of for maybe you on a personal level as well as kind of as AVA Intellect, how are you keeping up with all of the changing models out there, and how will AVA Intellect kind of keep up with that in its offerings?
Well, I think, we're one of the little guys, right? And, you're seeing people, it's kind of shocking to me when you see major service providers that have got hundreds of millions of dollars of backing, and then you see a competitor show up and you're like, that's interesting, right? So the barriers are really lowering across the board, as far as entering the spaces. So for us, we are concentrating on integrations. We're concentrating on providing value to service providers, right? And that's where our focus is going to be. So the real focus is integrations, right? And of course, low latency and everything that we've talked about with respect to, interactive agents. But you can expect us to be a leading integrator.
Excellent. Yeah. There's going to be so many people doing like specialized models and specialized things in this industry that having that ability to be that leading integrator is tremendously valuable.
Right.
So we have a question here from Glenn Sanders asking, will companies with antiquated or disparate knowledge-based systems need to reformat that knowledge for use in AI? So I guess if they were going to integrate that internal system into AVA Intellect, how much work do they have to do before it could be integrated, let's say?
So I think it depends on the knowledge base, right? We always joke around, garbage in is garbage out, right? But there's been a lot of advancements in this space, right? So even what RAG was a year ago is not what it is now, right? So ultimately, we've taken the agents, we've turned it into an actual function. So when you connect to, your a vector database, it's really just another database and a tool that the agent is talking to. So we still would recommend that we normalize some of the data that's being ingested. If it is, there are better formats, but the tooling available to actually take, I don't want to say garbage, right, but take some of the more, let's say, advanced file formats and then turn that into something that can be consumed, in a vector database has gotten a lot better. So a little bit of it depends, but it just continues to get smarter.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So as closing up here, just a couple quick comments. Definitely some kudos to you in the chat there. For instance, Beth saying, congrats, sounds amazing. And there's somebody who would like to partner with you. So
thank you, Beth.
You'll be hearing from Beth probably. And Nick wants to confirm, who's your prospective customer, who's the buyer for AVA Intellect?
So definitely, like I said, concentrating on service providers. So we're looking for, people that kind of have their own tool ecosystem. They're dealing with enterprise clients. They want to keep them there, right? So you've got your third-party agentic systems. We want you to take those with you, right? So your multi-agent platform where you're automating a bunch of your processes, like bring them over, let's integrate them, and ultimately give you the way to expose that through a voice agent.
Perfect. Excellent. All right. Well, Mike, I'm afraid we have to wrap up here. But
come on,
really,
I'm having a good time. I was going to have balloon fall from the ceiling, but the rig isn't working.
I'll get it. Well, it's
for the
okay.
200th episode.
Yeah, for the 200th, we'll have you back for that, and you remember the sports jacket, so that's enough.
let me get as much as I can out of this. Hold on.
Right, exactly. Any closing remarks, Mike? And how can people learn more about AVA Intellect?
So you can actually, obviously hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm always on the LinkedIn, but also on avaintellect.com. There is a request access form. If you submit to that, I may or may not see that instantly. So, if you would like to talk about partnering or even doing some, integrating with your own solutions and platforms, please reach out to me, and I'd love to schedule a one-on-one call.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you again for joining me today, Mike. Really enjoyed it.
Oh, same here, Aaron. I really appreciate it. Again, an honor to be on episode 100. This is a big deal.
It is, but we certainly appreciate the opportunity to work with you and for the time you took for this fantastic conversation. So
Awesome.
thanks
Thank you,
again,
Aaron.
Mike. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Aaron.
All right. So thank you again to everyone for joining us today. But remember to stick around. We're not quite done yet. I'll have Tsahi joining me for our regular industry analysis segment in just a moment. We'll talk about some big announcements regarding Skype and Amazon Chime. But first, let me remind you that this video will be available on the WebRTC Ventures YouTube channel, as well as on our blog at WebRTC.ventures. And our next episode of WebRTC Live will be Wednesday, April 23rd at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. To find out more about our upcoming episodes, follow us on social media at WebRTC Ventures on Twitch, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and join our email list at WebRTC.ventures. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. Let's make it live. Thanks for joining me today, Tsahi.
Thanks, Aaron.
So a couple of interesting things have happened in the real-time communication world news recently. First is that Skype is shutting down.
Yep.
I can't say I'll exactly miss it, but I do have fond memories of using it. I think realistically, I'm not sure I could have started my business without it 15 years ago. What are your thoughts on Skype being shut down?
Well, I'll start with, for me, it's slightly different because Skype was a kind of, not exactly a competitor, but they changed the market. I used to work at Radvision at the time, and we did, voice over IP, video conferencing systems, and all of the protocol stacks. And then comes this small company and does things that actually work out of the box everywhere, without us in the middle. So it wasn't that fun. So my memories of them aren't that fun. They lasted longer though. So, they have that. I guess the fact that they shut down, why only now? That's the main question, because I don't think that Microsoft gave it any love and attention for the last 5-6 years at least.
Yeah.
Even during the pandemic, nobody cared about Skype at that point in time.
Yeah.
And it didn't seem as if it's going anywhere. And when Microsoft actually did something, it was Microsoft Teams. It wasn't Skype.
Right, exactly. Yeah, they made a definite branding and product shift, a whole strategic shift, and I mean, for me, anyways, I've always thought of. I know Skype has video, but I've always thought of it as more of an audio tool because that is how it started. That's how we used it in my company. We were working remotely, teams in the U.S. and Latin America, clients in the U.S. and we got them involved in daily meetings with clients. It was all 100% over Skype. For years, we did that before WebRTC came along and before other tools became more accessible and started to, do a better job with video in particular. And then we switched to video calls. But, it's I have one use that I still use Skype for. I have a Spanish teacher who I take lessons with, and we've been talking for 10 years together, and she just always uses Skype. So I guess we're going to be switching to WhatsApp now. But it's funny, when I look in that tool, when I go to talk to her, I can still see some historical chats from like 10 years ago in our business. So it is a milestone, definitely.
Yep.
But interesting, how they've done a better job with Teams, it seems.
Yes, I think the deterioration started with the iPhone, if you think about it. When iPhone opened for apps in iPhone 3 or whatever, they were not the first ones. They were never the best ones. And they did a crappy job it's like one of the things that they've done there was take whatever they did on desktop and copied it there verbatim. Whatever was done there was the same thing. And from the protocol's perspective, it meant that they always had the connection to their server and all of the signaling were there, and that killed the battery even if you didn't use the application. And that was at a time where push notifications started to become a thing, so you don't need to do that exactly. And it took them too long to actually go and fix that. And I think that was what eventually killed them. They didn't do the shift towards mobile in the way that other companies did.
And now Teams handles everything in the Microsoft universe.
Yep.
Much more solid communications platform, as well as integration with all of their LLMs, and those were certainly not a thing that Skype was going to do. And the distinction between Skype and Skype for Business was never a very strong distinction to me either, personally, anyways. So yeah, I feel like it was a bit inevitable. And it would be interesting to know more about why they chose now as opposed to, frankly, in the past. But
that's easy.
Okay.
Everyone is shutting down something. Even the US government.
It's just socially acceptable right now.
Yes, exactly. If you look at it, in the last year, companies started shutting down things that they think are not, not making enough money. We had one example that wasn't a good one, which is Twilio programmable video. They sunset that, and then they reneged, and they came back from that decision.
Yeah.
Before it actually was done. So the damage was done because they said that they're going to throw that away. Right. And then they assumed that this is not a thing that they should be shutting down.
Yeah.
So it's not as if other companies in this space don't go and shut down things because they don't succeed. They're not big enough. They're not making the money that they should. So I don't think that there is a lot of difference here.
Yeah. I don't think in this case, unlike Twilio, I don't think we'll see Skype come back from the dead. I think this one's for good. Now, there was another meeting tool shutdown announcement recently that AWS, Amazon Chime, is being shut down as a tool. Now, to be clear, there's a distinction here. They've always had two distinct products, basically, the Amazon Chime SDK, which you can use to build your own real-time communications applications, also integrates with Amazon Connect, their call center solution, and then Amazon Chime as a desktop and mobile tool, which obviously was built on top of the SDK, but kind of managed distinctly within the company. And Amazon Chime, the tool only, is shutting down. The SDK remains in operation, and they've said that there's going to be no changes with that. So yeah, another tool shut down, and they're recommending that their users switch over to Zoom, a little bit like Twilio did as well.
Well, they're also saying you can move to Wicker and Zoom and Slack.
Okay, so a few more options there.
Yes.
Yeah.
The title was Zoom in the one of the news, the post on news websites, but it
that
wasn't.
Would grab the headlines.
Yes, in the actual announcement, it was you can use Wicker, which is Amazon, you can use Slack, and you can use Zoom.
Yeah. So you could still build with the Amazon Chime SDK if which is a pretty powerful SDK, and certainly if you want to keep things within the AWS universe, that's the way to go. But yeah, they're shutting down the tool there. Another interesting choice. Any thoughts on why they did that? Just same math, basically. Wasn't making enough money, probably.
Yes, and again, they have Wicker and they have Chime. Why have both?
Right.
Now, why didn't they kill Wicker and they killed Chime? I don't know. I don't know the numbers, but it probably was because of the differentiation between the two. Chime was there to replace Zoom. Wicker was there to compete with Signal or whatever. So the more secure alternative. So I think they just didn't see enough differentiation in there, and they didn't see a path to competition in this market. At least not at the size of Amazon.
That makes sense. Yeah, and Amazon in general, they're really good at the infrastructure, not necessarily known as as the UI company, right? And I think that for me, anyways, as a user of Amazon Chime at times in the past, I was never really crazy about the user interface on it. I like the SDK. I think they've done a nice job. And we've built applications with that at WebRTC Ventures. When I used Chime as a tool, it was usually because I was talking with someone at AWS. Or because we wanted to show a prospective client like the quality of the Chime SDK, which you could see through the tool. But as a tool itself, I never, fell in love with its user interface, and that matters a lot in these. So maybe they're sticking to what they're good at, which is great infrastructure.
The other part of it is, on one hand, they're not dog fooding anymore. So they're not the customer of their own stack,
Right.
which is bad. On the other hand, they're not going to compete directly with the product that you're going to build on top of their SDK, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, which one do you prefer?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. Well, any other thoughts you have on this? Does this lead you to any other thoughts about sort of consolidation in general of meeting tools, and where opportunities remain for more custom applications?
I think it's just house cleaning season. I mean, we're what, in the third year of a recession that nobody wants to say that it's a recession, with companies shifting their own budgets to things that make money now and not in the future, and putting less money in research or in things that are not for the here and now.
Yeah.
So now they're getting to the actual tools and looking not only at are they breaking even or making money as a tool, but what's their margin, how much money are they making versus the whole other part of the business. And is it worthwhile keeping that, or just when you just throw it into the garbage bin and move on?
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
If you're going to do research and speculative work, it's probably more around the LLMs than it is a lot of the communication tools, assuming that you are building a standard meeting use case. There's not a whole lot of need for more meeting tools, but there's still plenty of need for unique workflows around the use of video in an app, in a business workflow, I mean to say. And that's where the custom work comes in. That's where the SDKs still come in. But just building a meeting tool for the sake of a meeting tool, not a super glamorous thing.
Yeah, but still fun.
But still fun. That's right. Absolutely. All right. Well, as always, Tsahi, thanks for sharing your insights with us today. For more information about Tsahi's work, you can check him out at bloggeek.me. To learn more about future episodes of WebRTC Live, check us out at WebRTC.Ventures. Thanks, Tsahi.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks for joining us for WebRTC Live. Visit our website at WebRTC.Ventures to learn more about our custom design and development services, and to learn more about upcoming episodes of WebRTC Live.